Welcome to the In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show on iHeart Radio. Coming up, Lisa Whalen on what it takes to move to EVs. Had a chance to drive the Ford Expedition. I'll give you my thoughts on it. We'll also have the cruise-in calendar, and later, Conrad has This Week in Auto History. Just ahead in this hour of the In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Howdy, along with David Ainsley, our chief engineer and head potentate of something. King Conrad DeLong. We need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad that you could join us this Saturday, and thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate that. Our next guest this morning is going to be a lady by the name of Lisa Whalen. Lisa, good morning to you, and thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. My pleasure.
So Lisa is the managing director of a company called Morning Consult. I guess that's the way you pronounce it. That's the way I pronounce it anyway. It's a company that does automotive and mobility analysis. Oh, my God. You know, it was one of those classes in school. They were going, I don't want to be here. I don't know anything about this. You are in a certain area that it's like, oh, how does she do what she does? How do you do research and insight into the automotive mobility and transportation business? How does that work? Who came up with this?
Great question. Well, I'm lucky enough to live in quite a sandbox of great, rich consumer data. We pulse consumers every single day on their attitudes and behaviors around a number of different industries, and I'm lucky enough to be able to focus on automotive and mobility.
Oh, my God. Well, I'm glad that you haven't pulsed me, because I'd be nervous about what I would say to you. What kind of questions do you ask people?
Well, first of all, let me assure you there are no wrong answers in our pulse.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, of course. And we ask consumers everything from, what's going on with the vehicle they own currently, where do they park it? Did they finance it, lease it, or pay cash for it? We also look at what they're intending to purchase, when, what factors are really important in that purchase decision. And we love to pulse consumers on their attitudes and feelings about future technology, such as electric vehicles and autonomous driving.
Well, right now, with the automotive market the way that it is, and consumers going crazy with gasoline prices and what kind of car to buy. Do I buy new? Do I buy used? Do I have to buy right now? All of these things. I mean, it's almost like kind of like going to your psychoanalyst.
That's absolutely right. Especially coming off the last couple of years of the pandemic, it has been so volatile for the automotive industry with the supply chain crisis, restraining chips into vehicles. So there just hasn't been a lot of availability. Pricing has been really high. Consumers have been forced to hang on to their wheels and trying to wring out extra miles and really delay that purchase decision. So a lot of folks were hoping coming into 2022 that things were going to start to abate in the automotive industry. Prices might come down, selection would come up. There would be a lot of choice and just a big revenge purchase cycle for consumers. Unfortunately, with the geopolitical crisis happening in Russia and Ukraine, we have yet another strain on the global supply chain and as well the automotive industry for consumers.
What's the number one thing that you're finding right now among consumers?
The number one thing is the concern about gas prices. It's affecting so many different aspects of their lives. It's really fascinating to ask customers whether or not they've reduced their driving in the past month due to high gas prices. We've seen a lot of that happening, particularly with younger consumers, and that's a concern. They've also looked to alternate ways to move around, such as walking, biking, taking the subway versus personal transportation. So there's been a lot of activity under the surface in response to high gas prices. And of course, there's been so much more interest in electric vehicles as a result.
Well, and that's going to be my next question. Everybody thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to go to an electric vehicle. I'll bite the bullet and I'll spend the money to do an electric vehicle. But I guess the one factor that I don't think a lot of people think of is the fact that you're going to have to pay for the electricity that goes into that vehicle. I know that most people here in the Houston, Texas, because of our air conditioning in particular, you'll sign a contract with a power provider and be locked in for a year.
Depending on how much power you buy. So if you buy an electric car and now all of a sudden you're buying more power, you go into a different pay plan, and all of a sudden your electric bill goes from $300 a month to $900 a month.
Yeah. And so from analysis that we have actually discovered on this show from various people, that when you compare a gasoline powered vehicle compared to an electric vehicle, for the most part, an electric vehicle comes out being more expensive to operate than a gasoline vehicle. But now we're talking about some information that we received over a month ago. And a month ago, gasoline prices were much cheaper. So I'm not exactly sure how that's balancing out now. Do you know?
Well, absolutely. It just goes to the point that nothing in life is free. Unfortunately, EVs aren't necessarily the best trade-off in terms of cost of ownership for a vehicle. And no, gas prices have not gone down in any significant amount in order to make that cost equation, look better for gas-powered vehicles. But at the same time, they're not moving down enough to make EVs like a very obvious choice when you look at the total cost of ownership, let alone the ability to find charging access, range anxiety, and all of the other issues that consumers report around their reticence to buy an electric vehicle.
And range anxiety tends to be a little more regional. A person of range anxiety in Houston, it's 100 miles across the city, may be different than the range anxiety of somebody that lives in San Francisco, which, they're maybe only doing 10 miles a day, maybe 18 hours to go 10 miles, but they're not doing the mileage.
Or other factions to get around.
Right.
They got, the trolleys and the subs and all that, yeah.
Yes. Or their commutes or their routes are very predictable. So they know where to get charging. It's not a big question mark for them. And you're absolutely right. We look at consumers in rural areas versus suburban and urban, and absolutely more range anxiety comes out amongst rural consumers and even suburban consumers, because again, looking at predictability versus the chaotic nature of your normal routine when you're moving around. It's hard to predict always where you're going to find a charging station and whether or not you're going to be close to out of charge. So there's a lot of anxiety across most of the country from a range perspective.
And what do you do? I'm going to ask this. How do you guys monetize the data you collect? Do you sell it to auto manufacturers, dealerships, media? Somehow in what you do, there's a monetization feature to it.
Yeah, fair enough. The devil's in the details, I would say. We have so much data, but it's really about what do you do with the data? What types of insights can you draw across such high frequency data? And we have just massive amounts of information. But the value really is in the insights. And so our customers, our clients from across industries really not only value us for the data that we produce, but it's really drawing those insights and having those consistent interactive dialogues with our clients on what does that all mean.
So it's more business to business, not business to consumer data that you're providing.
Well, we do provide the end consumer data to the businesses, so it does help them in terms of their marketing strategies, messaging as they're building their products, how to best target consumers. Their needs and wants and desires and things like that. So at the end of the day, it's all about the end consumer, what our clients are trying to improve when they work with us.
So the clients can isolate the information they want to gather for their need.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can be as surgical as we want to.
What is the most often asked question of you? What category? What is it that your consumers, if you will, of your data, what are they wanting to know most of?
In the automotive and mobility industry, it's definitely about when are electric vehicles going to be really desirable to a broad number of consumers? When is that inflection point that the mass market is really going to adopt and want to purchase electric vehicles.
And at $5 a gallon, are you starting to see that, or has it really not turned a corner yet where you can see a trend line developing?
Well, interest amongst consumers has really skyrocketed this year in terms of electric vehicles. We saw record splintering levels of Google searches in March for electric vehicles, but that doesn't necessarily translate into sales. First of all, there's not a lot of supply out there for electric vehicles as the supply chain continues to be really restricted. And second of all, we had alluded to prices or cost of ownership, but just the very entry price of getting an electric vehicle is prohibitive to most American pocketbooks, especially when they're feeling the strain of overall inflation, making them make spending trade-offs at this point. So it's really not translating to anything very tangible at the bottom line.
But you're kind of seeing the interest is increasing, and tends to the purchasing decisions will follow at some point in the future.
Well, definitely the interest is increasing, but then it's interesting because we compare back to the 2008, 2009 crisis when gas prices were quite high as well. What we saw back then was some substitution from consumers to trucks, with less mileage per vehicle into cars. So we saw some of that movement. But it's interesting how easily we forget. Like when gas prices drift back down, as we hope they will, because the nature of most of these indicators is cyclical, consumers easily forget. And we know the American consumer is about convenience, first of all. So if gas prices don't stay high for that protracted period of time, we don't necessarily see this lasting interest in EVs.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Americans have a very short attention span.
They do.
Shiny thing.
Squirrel.
So, the Eevee Market now, do you think your increase in it that you saw back in March was a little bit driven by the Ford announcements and the GM announcements and the Hummer announcements, and that's being driven as much by all of the new vehicles, the EVs that are about to hit the market, or do you think it was really driven by cost of fuel?
I would say at the top line, a lot of the interest was driven by manufacturer announcements, and the New York Auto Show sure did a nice job in terms of providing an interactive EV experience. So consumers love to listen to the buzz, and there have been a lot of very exciting announcements coming out from a product perspective. So that does pique interest. But again, how does that translate into sales at the bottom line? Because the pricing is so prohibitive at this point for EVs, especially with the GM and Ford products. The GM Silverado is over $100,000. Who can afford that at this point? So yeah, we do see a lot of interest sort of on the top line because of that. But the real threshold of interest in EVs right now is because of gas prices. We've definitely seen that consumers say because of gas prices, they have been more open to EVs, interested, learning more.
When you find somebody that is interested in the EV, do you ask them, are they interested in buying or just interested in learning more about it? And is there a cost factor involved when it comes to their interest in it? In other words,
is there a ceiling to their?
Yeah. In other words, I mean, today's regular gasoline engine driven car or truck or SUV is about $40,000 on average. So is anything over that? I mean, most EVs, if you want them decently loaded, is going to cost more than $40,000, and certainly Tesla.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, we do ask consumers about time horizons, first of all. Whether that or not they're interested in purchasing an EV within the next 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. And you do see some inflection points. About 10% of consumers say, hey, yeah, I'm interested in within a year. More like 40% are interested in about 5 years. But it's also important to note that at this point, almost 20% of consumers say, I'm never going to be interested in an electric vehicle. And then from a pricing perspective, and that part of that feeds into part of that purchase decision, pricing does, we look at a lot of the factors, the reasons why consumers are reticent to actually purchase electric vehicles. And pricing definitely comes to the top. Pack in terms of those reasons behind range anxiety and charging infrastructure concerns.
Do you find the interest in the vehicle, the 1 year versus the 5 year versus the 10 year versus the never? Do you find that there's an age overlay to that,
Oh,
where
that's a good one
the
there.
younger ones are more apt to be in the 1 year range, where us gray-headed guys sitting here, David maybe excluded, are more of the no, I'll never?
For sure. For sure. It's the younger consumers that are leading the charge to electric vehicles. They are early adopters of technology in general. And it definitely follows with the electric vehicle market. The interesting thing, though, is we also ask consumers whether or not they would prefer to purchase an electric vehicle from a traditional manufacturer like a GM or a Ford, or a purely electric manufacturer like a Tesla or a Rivian. And while younger buyers say they would prefer to purchase from a purely electric manufacturer, baby boomers actually want to purchase from an electric vehicle from a traditional manufacturer. So that's a great
That's interesting,
opportunity
yeah.
for the GMs and the Fords of the world.
Truly amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, we could talk to you all morning long. Would you like that? You had nothing.
Sure,
You had nothing else to do on a Saturday morning, did you?
absolutely not.
Where are you located?
Right now I'm in Northern Michigan.
Oh.
I'm a remote worker, which is a fabulous way to be. So I'm looking out on the bay of Northern Michigan. It's
Oh, how
beautiful.
beautiful.
Well, David Ainsley's headed your way, our chief engineer over here, manning the computer this morning. Yeah, he's up there in the UP, so he'll be heading your way in June, I
Yeah,
think.
you got a unicorn
absolutely.
farm up there or something. don't you?
A
Absolutely.
unicorn farm, that's it. Lisa,
Perfect time of year.
yeah, exactly. Lisa, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Great information. Can we knock on your door again soon?
Anytime, please. Would love to chat with you folks.
Well, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank
Again,
you.
thank you very much. Lisa Whalen
Very
with Morning
cool.
Consult. It's been a pleasure.
Great
All right.
info.
Yes, it truly is. Automotive and Mobility Analysis. Who would have thunk? But, I mean, car manufacturers, that's where they get their
Well,
information.
Not only them, but the media, that's where all of this, here's what's going on, here's what to expect. They provide the data to all of those different people. Think about a car manufacturer, Ford and Chevy. Did they know that electrics were going to happen on their own? Or were they looking at this kind of data that says, hey,
And who is interested and who's buying?
right.
Well, it's kind of like the paint colors on cars today. That was pretty much thought about 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
And I think that the whole electric thing is kind of going in that same direction.
We need to ask her next time if paint colors is one of the things that they
We should have.
You know,
yeah,
probably
I didn't even
they
think about
question
that.
customers on.
Yeah, but as far as EVs are concerned, I mean, more stories today about major manufacturer opening battery manufacturers, plural, or opening battery factories around the United States, which I thought was interesting, instead of importing stuff. And I think there's going to be a lot more stuff that's coming back to the United States that in the past we've depended on foreign countries to supply
And the
us.
manufacturer partnering that's going on, because Honda is going to be using the GM skateboard, what I call the skateboard,
yeah.
the Ultium battery pack, and putting their own vehicle on top of it.
Right.
So,
But not only colors, but what are the younger crowds looking for options? What do they want to see on the interior?
Oh.
That would be also.
well, that's a good lead into
Yeah.
my final today.
There you go.
Options and features.
I'm trying.
Mars
Conrad,
did
I
things
really
that people don't want or don't need. I'll do things the manufacturers have stopped doing.
Yeah.
Great.
I think their tenants exhaust
Everything Mars showed before.
the twirly bird or whatever.
Well, the headers.
On a Prius.
You know, I don't do. I mean, on a race car, okay, I get headers, but on today's street car,
Headers that wake up your vet, Don.
I had headers on my '72 Nova. I
Header-
put them on myself. yeah.
Headers that wake up the vet.
Yeah.
What about 10 horsepower?
Probably more than that if you do a tune along
Nowadays,
with it.
yeah.
Because you got to remember, air in, air out.
I know,
when you change one of those flow ratios of air in and air out, then you get to add more fuel.
I wonder. Yeah, well, I don't need to
And
add
that,
more
and that
fuel.
creates more power.
I understand, but I think that on, for instance, my 21-year-old car, I think that the manufacturers finally realized, hey, we're going to get some performance out of this
Oh, yeah.
and make it all flow a lot better. And by going through all of the. Can you imagine? I cannot even imagine trying to put headers on a 21-year-old Corvette today.
Oh, you'd have to.
My 1977 Corvette, I got under there. I did the whole thing all by myself, took the entire undercarriage out. No big deal. But on today's car, no.
We did your shifter. We could do your headers in my
No,
shop.
we're not. We are not going to do that.
Or you could do shorties that are it's a header and it bolts right to the cats.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of room under the hood of that.
There's
thing
no
to do
room.
that.
There's not even under the hood, but even underneath it.
Well, from underneath is almost impossible.
Oh, it's just too much. All right. Moving on, time now for this hour's car review. Had a chance to drive the somewhat recalled 2021 Ford Expedition recently. And the recall is because of some sort of a thermal event that on some 32,000.
Did they come pick it up?
Pardon me?
Did they pick it up because of that?
No. It was just the usual routine. Now, this is a 2021 model because the Ford press fleet is
still old.
Is still old, yeah. But at any rate, very viable still. The Expedition comes in many trim levels. Starts off the XL, goes to XLT, the Limited, the King Ranch, and the Platinum. I had the Limited 4x4, which is kind of mid-pack as far as trim levels are concerned. It is a standard SUV, according to the government. To me, it's a full-size, body-on-frame big boy.
Mm-hmm.
Seats up to 8 passengers.
Wow.
Well, let me put it this way. It was all new in 2018. Now, from what I understand, that the 2022 model has the new Ford F-150 dash in it with the big screen.
Oh, okay.
This one did not have that, okay? It's Ford's biggest body-on-frame SUV, straight lines, attractive grille and lower valance as well. Automatic folding running boards.
Love that.
Me too. Attractive wheels, rear hatch and lighting, awesome. Folding running boards, as I mentioned, what is one of my favorites, because instead of doing all of these crazy things, unfolding and coming out and up and all that, it just goes and it's there. Yeah. What could use improvement? Offer an off-road appearance package and maybe a hypo model. I think that there is a market for those.
Well,
and it doesn't have to be something crazy. Just, goose it up a little bit.
a Raptor Expedition.
Well, it could be. Sure, why not?
Ooh.
Big wheel and tires, nice four-wheel drive.
Look what
some skid
Chrysler has
plates.
done with
The
all of that.
TRX, right?
Mhm. Interior highlights. Straightforward dash on this particular one. Rotary gear shift on the center console. I absolutely love it. I don't know why it's on the console. I'd rather have it on the dash because I don't want my center console cluttered. Except I would like to have a charge pad for my cell phone and
inductor.
lay the pad right down next to me so I can look down there. I can integrate it with the car, do all of that, but not on this one. Rotary gear shift on the center console. I know it sounds silly, but why have the great big stalk up here? I don't get that. It's not connected anymore.
And
It's electric.
most vehicles have done away with that. Not all, but a lot of vehicles have done away with that stock shifter.
Well, controls are well placed in this. Very easy to use. The Sync 45 version works well. I don't know what number it is. Sync 92, whatever.
Probably 6.
Probably. A cargo trunk room with the third row up. Not much room except for groceries back there.
Yeah.
But that's the way that it is.
But this is the short wheelbase, not the long.
Right. Conservative styling. What I liked about it. We could use improvement. I understand the new 150 dash is in the current iteration of the Expedition. Now, engine, 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6. Now, this isn't the high horsepower. This is only 375.
Yeah, only.
Not, yeah, exactly. Torque, 470.
Which is more than sufficient.
Yeah. 10-speed automatic transmission, tow rating 9,300 pounds. It's smooth, man. I mean, that drivetrain is smooth. 17 miles per gallon city, 23 highway for a combined of 20. I got 17.3, and I'm not exactly sure why. I really didn't floor it.
I was going to say, I thought you'd have got a little bit better because I know
did too.
You're a little softer shoe.
Yep. 419 miles is what I drove it. Plenty of power. What could use improvement? I don't know. It's
The dash. But they did that for 2022.
Ride and handling smooth, limo-like ride.
Oh, yeah.
What could use improvement? I'd like to see a ride mode selection. They may have that. I didn't drill down into it. Base trim price. $64,625. Price is tested $71,515. Base model price $49,625. Now remember that. Base
You
model
could start at
price
$49,000.
$49,625. The Chevy Suburban starts at $50,700. The Nissan Armada $48,900, and the Toyota Sequoia for $50,400. They're all within a couple $1,000 of
But
each
go
other.
to the dealership and try and find
You
one of
can't
those
find
Strippo models that probably don't exist. Everybody's playing in that mid 60s to 70 range.
Tell you what, if you got a couple of kids, you drive on your vacations, maybe to go see Aunt Mary or cousin Vicky or whoever it is that you go see in the summertime, and maybe take a little trip at Christmas time with the kids. This is the ideal vehicle for that. Yeah.
Load them up and haul them away.
Yeah. When my two girls were younger and we went on vacation, all of us together, I had a Suburban, had two of them actually. What a handy thing to have.
Yeah, they're huge because we rented one a few years ago up in the Detroit area, and it was huge for the kids. It was a great vehicle. Yeah.
Angela had a couple of Suburbans and then the Tahoe, but the Tahoe always had third row seats because we were hauling the team. Whether it was soccer, baseball, water polo, volleyball, basketball, water polo, water polo, water polo.
Yeah. They're so handy.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the popularity and how it all progressed from the Suburban era. And have you ever seen one of the original Suburbans?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
three doors. They never had a rear door on the driver's side. You know why?
For emptying out in traffic, and empty out on the curbside
for safety.
Yeah.
Now they don't care.
Yeah. Well, when you had the kids going for the polo, did you have the horses in the trailer back there too?
Yes. But if you think about it, they do care because now you start seeing them talking about your door won't work if the radar sees somebody coming from the back, which I think's smart idea.
Yeah. All it is a computer, a program in the computer that's in there.
You need a chip for that.
The In-Wheel Time Car Show streams on the iHeart Radio app, Facebook, YouTube, and InWheelTime.com. Podcasts available from your favorite podcast provider. In-Wheel Time Car Show continues right after these brief messages.
Father's Day weekend, Saturday, June 18th, 2022. It's the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise-In, and you're invited. Tailpipes and Tacos Father's Day edition will be at the same Loopy Tortilla in Katy, 8 to 11 a.m. on Saturday, June 18th. It's the only place cruisers compete for trophies and other prizes. Enter your vehicle for Best Hot Rod, Best Classic, and Best Modern Classic. Tailpipes and Tacos is Houston's coolest cruise-in and is your opportunity to see the best hot rods, show cars, classics, and resto mods, and get Loopy Tortilla breakfast tacos and adult beverages. There's no entry fee, and cars will automatically compete for custom Loopy trophies and other prizes. It all happens at the Loopy Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10. Kick off summer with Tailpipes and Tacos Father's Day edition, Saturday, June 18th. The In Real Time Car Talk Show will be there too. Celebrate Father's Day, the start of summer, and the return of Tailpipes and Tacos. Saturday morning, June 18th, 8 to 11. We'll see you then, weather permitting. Want to take a minute to tell you about Gulf Coast Auto Shield, a Houston detail company like no other. Gulf Coast Auto Shield offers paint correction services that'll give your car, truck, or SUV a like-new shine. Afterwards, you'll want to protect it with a professionally installed nano-ceramic coating or protection film. Worried about your very expensive windshield getting damaged, broken, or cracked? Let Gulf Coast Auto Shield install ExoShield, a windshield protection film. Give John Gray a call today or check out their website, gcautoshield.com. Hey, whether you own a new, ultra-expensive, exotic, or a 5-year-old Suburban, Gulf Coast Auto Shield will help keep your investment looking like the day it rolled off the assembly line. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is conveniently located on the South Sam Houston Parkway, just south of I-69, the Southwest Freeway. Meet the staff and check out all of their services online right now at gcautoshield.com. The In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show is now part of the iHeart family. Now you'll have access to 24/7 Car Talk anytime you need a fix. Just download the iHeart Radio app and ask for In-Wheel Time Car Talk, and there we are. Be sure to save us in your iHeart library for instant access. No matter where you are, you have the best Car Talk Show right on your PC, laptop, or mobile device and never have to worry about finding us again. Of course, you can always get access to our video and audio streams via InWheelTime.com and your favorite podcast channel, and all of this is free to you. From the iHeart Radio app, you'll not only hear our Saturday morning live show, but the best shows of the past, updated weekly. Never miss a minute of up-to-date new car reviews, pre-owned reviews, Conrad's Car Clinic, informative interviews, automotive news, and the most fun car talk show on the planet. Just download the iHeart Radio app, search for In Real Time Car Talk, save it to your library, and with a tap of the icon, you'll be in touch with your favorite Car Talk team. In Real Time Car Talk, streaming now on iHeart.com/InRealTimeCarTalk.